We've spent over 10 years on air, shaping a generation of action motorsports, and now we're changing the game again. The best motorsports, the best action sports, and the best of pop culture with some epic guests thrown in. I am Jim Beaver, and this is the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. Hold on tight, the misadventure is just getting started. Welcome to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. Big couple of guests this week. I've been friends with these guys for well over a decade. I like to call them my brothers from another, but Matt and Josh Martelli. I've interviewed them both independently at separate times, but never sat them down in the same room together. So I've got them on the show today. This was recorded a few weeks back when they're here in Parker. Really stoked with how this interview turned out. So I'm going to leave the disclaimer. Obviously, there's big news coming out of the world of off-road, and that obviously the Parker 400 or Parker 425, Mad Media is taking on the Parker 400. Then we've got Legacy taking on whatever they're doing in February. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean they really haven't disclosed much information other than they got a permit. Don't know the name of the race or where they're going. And Mad Media has been a little more forthcoming with their info. So I recorded this intro or this interview when they were here in Parker meeting with some local officials. They didn't have the permit yet, so we didn't talk about Parker. We literally talked about Matt and Josh and their career and their beginnings to where they are now. Kind of alluded to the reasons why they were in Parker, but we didn't talk much about the race. So that being said, I do have, after this interview, in the same podcast, I've got Matt, who I sat down with today, and we talk about Parker. So if you're tuning into the Martelli Brothers to talk about Parker, you're going to have to wait till the end when I've got Matt back and he talks about the actual race. But I think you really should listen to this interview because it's amazing where they've come from. We talk about creative and social media and marketing, and, man, it's pretty phenomenal. The merger of action sports into off-road and the culture that we've built around the off-road world, and it's pretty remarkable. So I think you guys are going to enjoy that. So that is some big news. A lot of you probably tuning into this one, more off-road specific audience. So do want to say, obviously San Felipe just wrapped up. Make sure and head over to our friends at Off-Road Racer Official. They've got all the write-ups stuff from San Felipe. Big shout-out to Luke McMillan. I need to reach back out to Luke, get him on the show sometime really soon. But man, I got some really big guests coming up here in the future on the show. We've got Jet Girl, my friend Anna Glennon, one of the top female jet ski racers in the world. She's my guest next week. We've also got Ruslan. Yes, the kid that just sends it in razors. He's going to be one of my guests here in the next week or so as well. So really good guests lining up. I think another pro wrestler might be coming on as well. So got some fun stuff happening. I've got some really cool film projects yet to come. Lots of cool stuff cranking on my end. So lots to loop you in on at some point. Other big news coming out of the world of off-road. Best in the Desert, obviously we know through Parker, things like that. They've had some struggles this year. The Parker races got canceled. Now they've moved on to different promoters. The Cal City race, the Best in the Desert was going to put on, got delayed. Now it sounds like that's canceled indefinitely. And now the Silver State 300, one of my favorite races of the year to actually race as a racer, has now been canceled with a TBD date later this year, hopefully. So Best of the Desert going to kick off their season in August with the Best of the Desert Vegas to Reno. So we'll see. Sounds like they've got some stuff they're working through on their end, and Vegas to Reno should be a go. So, here's hoping, that one can go, get things worked out and they can, put it together. There's a lot of racers that would love to go run that event, one of my favorite events of the year, and it's a bit iconic. So definitely wish them the best. But we are going to jump into things here after this short commercial break. Got Josh and Matt Martelli talking about their careers and stuff, and then don't forget, at the end of the show, I'll have an interview with Matt Martelli talking specifically about Parker. But before we jump to that, Do want to tell you guys, General Tire, one of our main partners here on the show. They have an awesome promotion going on this spring. You can get up to a $70 rebate when you buy a qualifying set of General Tires now through the end of April. If you're watching this on YouTube, yes, we're cranking with a lot of YouTube stuff, a lot of video stuff coming in, almost TV style. So make sure and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, social media at Jim Beaver 15. But if you're on YouTube or you're on our website or even on Apple Podcasts, should be subscribing there as well. Down in the footnotes, you'll see a link to General Tire. Click that link. It's going to take you over to their site, tell you how you can get up to $70 rebate on qualifying tires now through the end of the month, a.k.a. April. So, get those General Tires. GT delivers, and you are going to be stoked having some new tires on your ride. Just got a brand new set of ATXs on my Super Duty. Going to post some pictures today. Got some 18-inch Vision forged wheels that are all new to the market, so really excited to get those on and check them out and see what it looks like. I don't know. I've rambled enough. I think it's time to get to Martelli's. So we're going to take a short commercial break. Come back. It's going to be Matt and Josh Martelli right here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. Making the most of every moment can be demanding, which is why at General Tire, we think you should demand more from your tires. For more than a century, we've made great all-around tires that always deliver the right combination of performance, durability, style, and value. Whether you're looking at the ultra-high-performance summer tires for your street rod or the best-in-class all-weather tire for your family crossover, General Tire delivers for those who demand more from their tires. Find your fit at GeneralTire.com. General Tire, the official tire of the Jim Beaver Show.
Conditions off the pavement are always changing, so why settle for a light bar that just turns on and off? The Rigid Adapt is a revolutionary new light bar that will automatically select from 8 beam patterns that range from a widespread 90-degree flood to a 15-degree spot based on your vehicle's speed. Try that with your knockoff light bar. A dash-mounted controller allows the user to toggle between adaptive mode, beam patterns, and RGBW accent lighting. With Adapt, it's easier than ever to own the night.
When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out visionwheel.com or at Vision Wheel on social media to learn more. Like what you're hearing? Do us a favor and head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki and never miss another show. Welcome to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. This one is going to be a little bit fun today, and I have absolutely no we can cuss. I forgot I'm not on Sirius anymore. So no fucking idea where this is going to go. We've just been talking about surfing and North Shore stories, but I got Matt and Josh Martelli. Interviewed you both probably 100 times apiece, but now even Josh and I, we went and did a Deegan thing where we sat down with Brian Deegan for like 2 hours at Deegan's compound. Like, I don't know, we run pretty deep. It's the first time I've ever had you both sitting down together, man.
Well, yeah. We're not usually allowed to be in for insurance purposes. We're not allowed to be in the same room together very often. No, it's good to be here, man.
Normally when you're in the same room, there's an attorney involved too or something.
Yeah, exactly. If we're in the same room with you, you better watch out.
I was going to say, I'm drinking a Mountain Dew Zero, and you guys got coffee. We don't have booze involved in this deal.
Yeah, next one for sure.
Yeah, well, it's, we do try to get business done during the day, but we do like our spirits at night.
Definitely.
Spirits at night, yeah. We had a few spirits last night. Wasn't bad.
Yeah, no, it was pretty mellow.
Yeah. I had business to take care of today that we'll talk about at some other point. But.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's just funny because, I was hearing your stories last night. You guys were talking about growing up and moving to SoCal, and like we were talking about skateboarding, and we were just, I didn't realize you guys had spent so much time in Hawaii, like on the North Shore, and like that's what I love. Like everybody's heard the off-road side, but I think like a lot of people don't realize your guys' action sports background and kind of, and what you took from that, and then, and how it transitioned into, your vision for off-road and things like that. And I mean, I didn't even realize, Matt, you and Ken Block went to the same college at the same time together. Like, yeah. I mean, it's just crazy. You know what I mean? Back then you look and it's like, you know what I mean? How things have transitioned 20, 25 years later, you know what I mean? And and basically the groundwork you guys were laying and not even knowing it at the time,
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, look, it was funny because I was actually talking to my high school graphics instructor, who I'm still friends with, and it's really started with Helix. You know, I walked into graphic design ROP program, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. And I think I was 14. I wanted to make shirts for my band, you know, and at that point I was already skating, but I wasn't super connected to the business side of skateboarding. That came, you know, right around that same era. You know, there was this DIY aesthetic with skateboarding. And then, you know, at our high school, it was like, you know, I had Rick Dirk, who was our teacher, and then he was bringing the people that he worked with, Dan Harold Stewart, who is a legendary skate photographer, and, you know, just all these influences. And it really opened my eyes to the idea that, you know, beyond high school, it wasn't just going to be slavery, right? You could be creative, and that could be your job. So, you know, man, once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to be a graphic designer. I'm going to be a filmmaker. Like, it was just hands-on everything. And then really skateboarding was, you know, the kind of groundswell of creative people at that time in Southern California. So, you know, all these people were surrounding us, and they were doing things that you just were like, well, you're a kid. You shouldn't own a skateboard company, but they did. You know, I could tell you so many different stories of being influenced by skateboarders and people who became the business leaders of skateboarding. Todd Swank. I remember buying skateboards from Todd Swank out of the back of the trunk of his car, and you know, he became friends with me because he figured out that I understood screen printing and started, you know, more or less working for him for free, right? And Ken, you know, I met Ken at Palomar in 1991. By the time I got to college, the teachers had figured out I'd run screen printing shops, and they put me in charge of the lab, and Ken was printing his company's shirts at Palomar. It's a company called 8 Ball that him and Persuade David had put together with Damon away as well, and that was a precursor to DC Shoes.
You know, I thought we had this conversation last night, and I was like, there was a company in between, and I finally remembered it just now. So it was Drawers Clothing.
Yes.
And then they shortened it to DC because I had a pair of shorts that said Drawers on them.
Yeah.
And they were my favorite shorts ever. And then I remember at one point I went trying to find them, and the company didn't exist anymore. So Drawers Clothing became DC. So there wasn't really a company in between. It was just known by a different name at the time, I think.
Right. Yeah, I actually think those were two separate brands, as I recall. Like, Drawers was their clothing division, DC was their shoe division. You know, and then, you know, Ken and Damon, especially being the creative geniuses that they were, you know, they spawned out this magazine called Big Brother, which was wild. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that Big Brother. I remember that it would hit the newsstands. I remember a small town kid in Parker. Like my exposure to action sports was literally there wasn't much on TV at the time. I mean, X Games changed everything, right? But I remember going to the newsstand and, you know, and skateboard magazines come, but I had to go and check daily because, you know, they'd only get 5 or 6 copies of, say, Big Brother or Thrasher or anything else. And it was like, if you missed it, like you had to wait a month. You had to be one of the first 5 or 6 people there because they would sell out immediately at the grocery store and then it was gone, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was a complete different, but that was pre-internet, you know? So it was like that was the only way to consume this content.
Yeah. You touched on something earlier, Jim, and just to add on to what Matt was saying, there was a common thread, I think, between where we grew up with skateboarding and kind of what has happened in the off-road industry, and that's the early adoption of technology, right? So at the time that Matt was describing in the 90s, there was this massive transition from things analog to digital. So when he hit the high school ROP program, that year literally was the first year that you could make artwork on a computer, print that artwork out, put that on a screen, and then print that on a shirt. Prior to that, you literally had to cut and paste stuff together on a blue board and shoot a photo of it and make a positive. I mean, it was this pretty revolutionary change in graphic design and printing. Same with photography. I mean, we were in the right place at the right time when, you know, we went from shooting on film, learning how to shoot on film and all the things that come with that, developing film, and working with photos. And then all of a sudden we have these, you know, digital backs and then eventually digital cameras. So, you know, there were schools for that, kind of, but the aesthetic in the skateboard industry was do it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, learn on your own. Like,
pick up the camera. And
we don't have the luxury of time or money to sit around and go, well, I think I'll go to college for 4 years and learn how to be.
There's no board meeting.
Right.
You got to do, you have to, in skateboarding, you had to create a product, get it to market, and be ready to create a new product within 3 months or you're out of business, right? So it became this like pressure cooker of like, man, if you can't hang, you better go do something else, you know?
And then, so then flash forward to, you know, what, 2009, 2010, and something similar begins to happen with UTVs coming in the off-road industry, right? How long did it take for these guys to tear apart, you know, those early UTVs and try to turn them into something, you know? And so that same kind of like garage-based ingenuity, I think we've just always been attracted to that. You know, it's always been part of our.
And it's also, you know, it's prevalent in Southern California, you know, for a couple reasons, and some that I just discovered recently, right? Like the weather's, you know, a big factor in, you know, and why Southern California is the nucleus of culture. But, you know, hot rod culture was happening, and then you had this kind of magical confluence of the aerospace industry, right? So you had all these genius level engineers who are like, yeah, I know how to make something go faster. I know how to make something, you know, have better suspension. And like all this stuff was just exploded out of this little, you know, I always like to refer to it as the Bermuda Triangle. It's like, you know, San Diego, Phoenix, and Vegas, right? And everything's just going down here, you know, and it still happens to this day. It's like whether it's food culture, business culture, music, fashion, you know, it starts here. A lot of times it gets, you know, changed someplace else and you know, regurgitated. But I just, you know, I feel so lucky and so blessed that, you know, Josh and I, you know, were born and raised in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm not the good side of that town. And, you know, we arrived in El Cajon in the 80s, and it was literally like, hey, kid, here's a three-wheeler. We're going to Glamis. And, you know, every weekend was a new adventure in Baja and Glamis and Ocotillo and, you know, going to the Mickey Thompson races and the score races. And I couldn't imagine a better childhood.
No, and that's me. It's like I look back, and it was like, talking today, like, you know, being able to travel like I do, you know, around the country, talking to other people, and, you know, their bucket list someday is to like come to the Southwest for a week and be able to go to Glamis or be able to go, you know, to Parker, to King of the Hammers. Like it's a, you know, come to the Mint 400. And I'm like, I guess, you know, one, having a dad that raced, but two, like growing up where I did, it's like, I rode dirt bikes and quads and jet skis, and I learned to water ski and wakeboard before wakeboarding was wakeboarding. It was called scurfing back then, you know, and it was like, you know, I learned to scurf when I was in kindergarten, you know what I mean? And it was things like that, but it was like, you know, I take that for granted because people in Midwest are sitting there in snow, and here we are in the Southwest, like, oh yeah, it's 65 degrees in the wintertime, you know, and just doing whatever the hell we wanted. And it's like very fortunate to be exposed to all these things. And it's like, I took it for granted. I don't now because I talk to, you know, I get kids DM me or, you know, adults that live in other parts of the country. And it's like, what we're doing out here in the Southwest, dude, they're so envious, you know? And it's like, I think we've got the Southwest and then Florida for certain reasons. Florida's got their own kind of unique thing going on, but it's like, it's crazy. Like, you know, we really are fortunate to live where we are.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Very blessed. It's a combination of geography and garage ingenuity, and you know, and we still see it. It's still prevalent. We have a very close relationship with Palomar and some of the other colleges in North County. A lot of our video interns come out of those video programs because, you know, we want the brightest kids coming out of those programs who are demonstrating they can show up to class on time and do well on, you know, whatever software platform they're working on. And then we bring them into Mad Media and work with them as interns for a couple months. And if they can show up on time and, you know, answer emails and demonstrate good aptitude in the office. Then we put them on the war path of like, okay, this is a Red camera, this is DaVinci, like this is the high end stuff, this is how we work. So, we have a strong affinity for that early kind of college education stuff, but then it's like on the job training in the absolute, Mad Max world that we operate in with covering races and shooting commercials and all that kind of stuff in the desert. So
it's funny you talk about Red cameras, and I'm going to digress here, but it's probably going to be the theme of this interview. Marston and I at the Mint, we were laughing because we were sitting there at the end of one of the days, and Marston and I are sitting there just, shooting the shit and everything. And we're looking. I was like, look at this. And he goes, dude, I've been looking at that. He goes, this is a relic of a camera or whatever. And I was like, I don't know, is it? And it was that big-ass Fuji camera, with the lens and everything. And Marston's, I was like, look at the size of that lens. I was like, I'm gonna Google this real quick. I Googled it. It was a $180,000 camera lens. And Marston and I both were like, holy crap. So Jason walks in and we're like, might not be here tomorrow. And he goes, well, why? What's going on? And Marston and I look at that and we're like, we might be at Vegas at the pawn shop. If Jim and Jim are gone tomorrow, and the camera's gone, we're in Vegas at the pawn shop. He started laughing, so he come in the next morning and he goes, I had to check to see if the camera's still here, and both you guys are. And we started laughing. I was like, man, cameras have come a long way, but I'm like, holy crap, you don't realize like high-end cameras, like, and Red shoots amazing stuff, but it's like, I don't know, cameras, you can look at them, but it's just, the technology is wild now.
Yeah. Well, the live stream team and that whole production that we put together, it's really the best of the best. There's a certain level that you can get to if you hire the right people and put the right team together. And, we want our broadcast to look as good as, NASCAR, Formula One, and we work really, really hard going into that event every year to do that. We have dress rehearsals, we practice stuff, we spend months talking about the graphic design and the look and the feel and the music, and we put a lot of blood and sweat equity into it, and that includes the equipment. There's decisions. We're looking at a budget sometimes and we're like, well, this is a little high here or high there, where do we want to cut? And it's never on stuff like cameras or microphones. I mean, shit, I think we had, how many drones did we have up this year?
I think 7.
Yeah,
but that's to your point, I mean, what's different about us and what we're doing now is we're not accountants and we're not lawyers, right? We're not even MBAs, right? We're the creatives, and the creatives are running the show now. So, that I think shows in what we do, because the decisions that we're making oftentimes are not the most profitable, but we think they're the best for the product, for the sport, for the culture, right? Because we just go back to the things that influenced us. It was, in off-road, it was Wide World of Sports, right? And then, moving to Southern California, and skateboarding, it was all the skate films, the Powell Peralta films that Stacy Peralta did. And then later on, a lot of the films that we were involved making with, Plan B and Osiris and, all these brands, and then just being influenced by that stuff. And
HBO films too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. HBO
films, yep. NFL films. I mean, we weren't, our household, we weren't the kind of family that sat around on Sundays and necessarily watched the game of the week or whatever, right? Yeah. My dad wasn't a huge sports guy, but we had HBO, and we watched the recaps on Monday night of the games, and watching the cinematic storytelling of those games with the, the awesome growly voice and the orchestral music. That is exactly what influenced how we first filmed The Mint back in 2010. It was like, we want to showcase how heroic it actually is when these guys are out there having these battles, and we didn't feel like that was being done with, like, the live to tape format that existed back then.
Oh, 100% it wasn't. I mean, I'm kind of, it's kind of interesting because, obviously when people in your life pass away, it causes you to, be introspective, and, losing Ken Block recently. I've thought about a lot of the stuff that we did together, and all the different people that we were connected to. And so it's caused me to reach out to a lot of those people and reconnect with them, because, it's kind of forgotten value. I'm like, man, we had a relationship, and beyond being friends, but a creative exchange, right? But I think it's like one of those things where, you start realizing the value of what you're doing, the impact you've had on other people. And I can tell you, like, we were the first guys to go out, and cinematically film rally. We got a hold of the first, one of the first HVX cameras, Panasonic HVX, which shoots slow-mo. And I remember Josh and I were at a test with Pastrana and Ken Block and Lance from Vermont Sports Car, and we're trying to figure out how to this shooting mode, and we got it set, and I sat in the outside of this corner, and there was like chunks of gravel the size of your fist, hitting us, and it was the wrong, sketchiest place to be. But the shot we got, I remember showing it. There was one of the guys from Subaru was there, and I remember showing him the replay of that shot with Ken, and everybody was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, they lost their minds because literally at that point in time, the only way to get slow motion footage was to shoot Super 16 film and go to telecine with it. And that just wasn't practical, both for the budgets and the time constraints we were under. So we had these cameras shipped from B&H in New York to Washington or wherever we were testing. We literally opened them out of the box the morning of the test, plugged the battery in, fiddled through the settings, and we're like, I think this is right. I hope this is right, or we're blowing it. And that footage ended up in a WRX commercial later that year.
Well, and the important part is at that point, nobody was paying us to do that. We knew we could capture something that nobody's ever captured, in rally, and show people how rad, how remarkable rally was, right? But we had to do it differently than everybody else, and we did. And we set the content, ball in motion for rally in the U.S. I mean, there's a couple things that have been done before that, but not very much, which that was what led to Gymkhana.
Well, and part of me, like, I worry because there's a beauty in what you guys do and the way things are produced. And it's like social media now with the verticals in the short form 3 second clips, like I feel like the beauty, it's like it's all about quantity, and it's a lot of crap media coming out that's doing really big numbers.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like it's degraded the quality. Like, I love the cinematics and the way you guys film things, and it's like every project it's like, yeah, great, if we get some reels out of it, awesome, but it's like I don't want that to be the reason we do a project, and you guys don't do that going in. It's like, yeah, there's going to be some stuff that we can use to work the algorithm to our favor, you know what I mean, at some point. But it's like I worry now because I've seen really since COVID, the content coming out, it's a lot of garbage content. I feel like the beauty of and the creativity, a lot of it's getting lost.
Yeah, it's definitely not rewarded, right? And we've got to change that, right? As a culture, as a society. And so there's a lot of negatives that, social media is cause, and that's one of them, but I could say that, like, it's up to us to teach that to other people and to, take it in our own hands and not let our culture or even America be dictated by algorithms, right? We're Americans and we're creative, and we should be able to, output our creativity in whatever length, format, etc. So, I'd encourage any creative, especially the younger guys out there, like, do your social media stuff, but just do your creative how you want to do it, how you believe it should be done, because that's what we did, and it definitely served us. And going back to Gymkhana, like, there was no client telling us to do Gymkhana. We just wanted to do it with Ken, and we knew that if we created a skate film for cars, for rally, that people would respond. Now, did we think that they would respond on the scale that they did? No, but there was a lot of things that led to that point. Our training and education and making skate films and, being off-road enthusiasts. It's like, you look at those camera angles and how that was shot, it still holds up today. And we had, we had no budget. We did that, for almost nothing. The deal, in between us and Ken was like, basically we did it for nothing, and he put up a certain enough money to cover expenses, and and then we built it from there. But I think to really stress the point is don't compromise. If you believe in your art and your creative, whatever it is, just do it, and it'll get, sorted out. I always use this analogy because I'm not necessarily the smartest guy, but do you think Metallica, when they made Ride the Lightning, were trying to make a pop album? No, they were just trying to make some badass stuff, and they made Ride the Lightning, and the rest is history, right? But sometimes you can't plan for that. You just got to do it and try stuff, and it's not always going to work, but every now and then you make Ride the Lightning and you change the world. I mean, think about that era. There wasn't even a category from metal music at that point. It's like, well, what do we do with this? And it just lights the world on fire.
Well, I think I agree, and I think another way to look at it is, your phone didn't used to be a camera, and your phone's camera didn't used to be good enough to tell stories with, right? And so now they are. Like, I watched a couple of YouTube clips recently specifically highlighting films that were made with iPhone cameras, right? And I had never seen them before, and this has been going on for years. It's like a whole subgenre of film now. A couple of them debuted at Sundance and did really well. And so that's cool. That's using a specific paintbrush, constraining yourself and limiting yourself, and then by virtue of those limitations, forcing yourself to be super creative with how you achieve a certain look or a certain feel. And so that's what I would say. I'd say you're right, 100%. What most people are using this paintbrush for right now is kind of,
it's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. It's likes and clicks and kind of bullshit, buck here, a buck there, back from YouTube. But if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But realize that same paintbrush, you can paint a masterpiece with, like the Sgt. Pepper is arguably the greatest Beatles album ever, recorded with a 4-track, reel-to-reel tape machine. So, again, it's just a tool, and how you use it is going to determine what, the success of your storytelling is, right?
100%. And to your point, Jim, like, one of the things that, the downfall of Rome, right, was because they began to placate the people and do only what the people demanded, which, basically became this kind of horrific decline of civilization. And I almost look at social media as the same way, as like, look, it can be a good tool for distributing, knowledge and content, but then when it gets turned into the placating the lowest common denominator and creating basically conflict, sowing conflict in between us, then it fails, right? And ultimately, again, that's the beauty of art, of creativity, is that, it brings people together. It shows people things that they hadn't considered, and it expands their minds.
Yeah. Well, and I've taken this stance. A lot of, I get a lot of people call me and things like that, racers, influencers, and have these conversations. And I tell them all, I'm like, social media is both good and bad. I'm like, don't put all your eggs in that basket. And one of the things I always tell everybody is like, okay, here's how you judge your value. I was like, I don't care what your Instagram following is if social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok went away tomorrow and all your accounts vanished, what value would you have?
Yeah. Right.
I was like, if all your value rests on those platforms that somebody else owns, you know what I mean? And I've seen, I was just talking with Lacey Blair in her interview. Well, I'm interviewing this or dropping this after that drop, so it's a weird thing, but she had almost 400,000 Instagram followers, and her account, she still doesn't know how it went away. It just literally vanished overnight. Yeah. And so she had to start from ground zero in like 3 or 4 months. She's got a big enough following. I think she just clipped 100K again, but she goes, it actually made me reset and change my trajectory on what I thought was valuable.
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? And she goes, so now she goes, you're seeing a lot of different stuff from me across multiple platforms and web and clothing and YouTube and things like that, where before everything was all laid in, podcasts now. And she goes, it was all on Instagram. And she goes, I lost it and it made me completely reset.
That's an important idea for people to understand is like, you do not own your social media. Those social media companies do. And the more time and effort that you put into it, the more that they own you, So, it's funny in marketing the Mint this year, and we've been doing this for a while, but this year we really stepped it up, we went back to some print, and it was fun, and it worked, right? Like, we printed up, I don't even know now, like probably 30,000 posters and spread them out all over Southern California, Nevada, Arizona, in every off-road shop. And, as much of a pain in the ass as that was, it was also very powerful because we're putting, this cool printed piece of art into everybody's hands. And what did they do? They took a photo of it and put it on social media. So it definitely works. And I think, it's cyclical. It's like, somebody does a great piece of art and it sits for a while. People mimic it. They do bad versions of it usually. And then somebody figures it out. And then the next generation does their, amazing piece of content, art, whatever it is, music. And, it keeps going forward. So, as rough as it is right now with social media and the amount of garbage that's out there, I'm actually excited about the future because it's giving kids ideas, about editing and photography and things that they simply didn't get before, right? And in a lot of ways, it's like if you weren't pushed through a creative channel at school, you didn't know what composition was. You didn't know what lighting was. You didn't know, depth of field. You didn't know all these things. You just took a photo, right? So now people are learning this. So I think that the backlash for this is that we're going to have more creatives, right? And more people that appreciate creativity.
Yeah. And I love, and that's another thing though. It's even like, the good and the bad of YouTube. Like YouTube has been phenomenal. I mean, because it's just this wealth of knowledge, and there is some good stuff. Like there's certain times where I don't know something, even like audio editing and things like that. It's like, I'll go to YouTube and I'll see some tweak or something and, adjust this setting on your mixing board or something like that. And it's just crazy, like the wealth of knowledge that's there, She's even like barbecuing, things like that. It's like, I want to try something new on the grill. I wonder how this guy did that, and I go there. And so it's like, but I think it's given these creatives an outlet or a way to learn things at a much more rapid pace, than they ever did before, because there is such a wealth of knowledge at their fingertips.
Yeah. I've made the leap from, free to paying for YouTube, which I know sounds ridiculous, right? It's like $15 a month.
Well, you're trying to convince my daughter last night, get paid YouTube.
I'm telling you, man, it is night and day different. I mean, I'm probably like a lot of your listeners. I'm a guy who transitioned from cable to, just picking up HBO and Netflix and all that stuff. And, I haven't had cable in probably, 5 or 6 years, but I was late to the game in paying for YouTube because, it's YouTube. I didn't feel like we had to pay for it. But what happened is about, 2-3 years ago, they really ramped up the number of commercials they force you to watch every clip.
Yeah, it's like 3 pre-rolls, and I'm like, oh 100%, my gosh.
Yeah, I can't sit there for 90 seconds when I just want to know what drill bit fits in the thing, and you know what I mean, whatever it is.
It's a 10-second video you got to watch 90 seconds worth of commercials for.
Right, it's shithouse. So paid for the subscription. Absolutely love it. I 1,000% recommend it. And, I drive my girlfriend crazy. I'll lay in bed for a solid hour. And it's like, everything from cooking videos to like, how to make a catio and then, how to make a propane poofer and, all this kind of random shit. But it's rad because I think for the better channels that I gravitate towards, those guys are making a living using the platform as it was originally envisioned, and a lot of the production on some of these channels is fucking fantastic, man. And it would have never seen the light of day. It's too polished. It would have never made it on like, local crap, whatever public access television. But no network would have picked it up, and so to people out there sitting there going, whatever your stoke is, whether it's chess, cooking, off-road, skateboarding, finding people who have that same creative excitement about filming and editing and production is the secret to then producing content about the things that you're stoked about, right? Like I tell people all the time, I can teach you how to hold a camera, I can teach you how to edit, but I can't teach you to be stoked on off-road. I mean, that's what we do. You know, whatever you're stoked on, that opportunity and that platform exists now, and that hasn't been the case always.
And I tell everybody, it's like, you know, I get a lot of people and they go, "Oh, you've got this huge show and this and that." And I was like, "Yeah, but you know," and Matt, you know, I mean, I remember conversations we had where I'm like, "God, did he not nail it to a T?" But it's like, I started out with a $20 Walmart headset, and I had 27 listeners in my first episode, and it was horrible. Yeah. I literally had written an hour worth of dialogue, and I just read off the paper. You know, it's like, it was bad, you know, but it's like I started, and I tell everybody, I'm like, just start. And if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I was like, money will come in if you're halfway decent at whatever you're doing. Right. I was like, just start pushing out content, and some of it's going to be rough, and it's going to be shitty, and it's going to be bad, but you learn through the process, you know, and it was like, last year, I had one of those moments, and it's like I give or take have accomplished quite a bit with the show and things like that. But it was like, got a call from Red Bull, and Red Bull hired me to produce it was something like 27 audio clips for Red Bull for a bunch of video projects, and I had to voice them and I edit them and stuff like that. And I go, okay, I've made it now. Yeah. Red Bull called me, and I produced audio for Red Bull because my self-taught editing after 10 plus years has got good enough that it's good enough for a Red Bull spot. You know, it was just one of those things where I had that moment where it's like, okay, I've arrived. We're good. I'm vetted. Red Bull wrote me a check to do something. Yeah. You know, but it was just funny. You know, but it's like, you know, I'm completely self-taught, and tell everybody, I'm like, just get started. You never know where 10 years from now. And I remember, you know, year 2 or something like that, me and Matt were having a conversation. I was bitching about this and bitching about that, and Matt just goes, look, 5 years from now, we're going to have a different conversation. He goes, you're going to have people beating down your door wanting in. Yeah. And at that point in time, I just couldn't see it. And literally, you know, fast forward 5, 6, 7, you know, now 10 years later, and I'm like, Matt was right. Like, but you just got to put in the time, and you just got to keep doing.
You know, the problem with modern society is everybody wants the shortcut. And I get that, right? But the reality of it is that there are no shortcuts, right? And, you know, now being where we're at, you know, we're pretty accomplished with what we're doing. Like, I'm glad there's not shortcuts, because now when, you know, like this year, you know, we had a really big year with the Mint, you know, our best year ever. And, you know, it feels really good. It's actually really, it's a really emotional thing to go through. It's really powerful. And, you know, it's one of those things that I really relish about what we do is like, hey, you know who did that? Me and my brother Josh and my cousin Killian, right? And
an army of people who also put their 10 plus years in, right? Everybody from the guys working staging, the guys and gals who handled our registration, the guys working on the website, timing and scoring, every single group there. There's people in that group, leading that group, who also have, you know, 10 or 15 years experience. And what we've learned is it's our job to set them up for success and to build them up and create a culture within our organization that, hey, we're a family. We're in this together. Yeah. You know, we're going to war together.
Well, actually, funny story, tying it back into skateboarding. So in 86 or 84, we arrived in
84. Yeah.
So in 1984, we arrived in Southern California, and, you know, from Michigan, so we were BMX kids, and some neighborhood kid walks up to me and goes, yeah, we don't do that here, we skate. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I traded this PK Ripper, which I should have never let go.
You got had, dude. Oh, you got had.
For 2 crappy skateboards, and, you know, the neighborhood kids are like, we're going to Del Mar. And I'm like, where's Del Mar? And I had no idea where it was at or what it was, and end up, you know, going to Del Mar, and, you know, I'm standing there, and, like, I didn't even know who these guys were at the time, but it's like Hawk, Hosoi, Caballero, you know, and I show up, and I don't have any pads. I don't have any, you know, I don't have the right skateboard. And I very vaguely remember the you know, the guy who was running the skate park at the time, you know, kind of going, hey, kid, come here, and, you know, there's a box of pads over here, and, you know, and you don't have the right skateboard, you need to get this, and blah, blah. And then the dude walks away, and I'm like, I'm over, in the bottom of the bowl rocking back and forth for a week trying to figure stuff out, and other kids are helping me. Well, that was Lou Peralta, right? And now, he's like more or less like our uncle and a legendary off-road producer, promoter. And then his son Lonnie is our head producer for all the content that you see come out of the Mint. So it's really cool to have those things come full circle, but to have people that came from skate culture understand what we're talking about, because we learned a lot from skateboard culture, and how to not just market, not just to create content, but how to do it and lead from a cultural standpoint, right? And it's not just about selling you a skateboard. It's about, getting everybody excited about the act of skateboarding the same way that we're doing now in off-roading. It's like, look, off-roading is fun as shit, whether you're doing it for competition or whether you're just going riding with your friends. And, we're here to share that stoke with everybody, because it's something incredible that you get to share with your family and your friends. And there's not a lot of stuff, that like that,
Well, and it's one thing I love about off-road, and it's like when I started this show out and started what I was doing, it was kind of off-road based, and I learned real quick, like, off-road, everybody is attracted to it, but it's like my paths and your paths and things like that. It's like it's so interwoven, between off-road and skateboarding and action sports and motocross and drifting and IndyCar and NHRA and music. Yep. And MMA. It's like even me, pro wrestling now, it's like my path is so interwoven with these other sports, and it's like off-road really is such a destination for so many things. It's like our culture has such a far reach into other things, and its tentacles are so interwoven into society and pop culture. And just talking with Sarah Price yesterday and the Hollywood stuff that she's doing, and how interwoven off-road is now into Hollywood and things like that. It's crazy what this culture really is and how far-reaching it is. I don't know that there's anything else that I've ever experienced that really has its hands in so many different cookie jars, but not because it was purposely done, just because it's just something that so many people want to be a part of.
Well, remember, like, everything really in culture is connected in some way, right? And it's one of the dumb analogies I love to use. It's like I use music as an analogy for it. It's like, you're going to sit here in front of me and you're going to tell me that Slayer and John Coltrane aren't connected. They're absolutely connected. They are at different ends of the spectrum, but they're connected. One of the coolest conversations I ever had about creative related to music was with the drummer from Lamb of God. I'm sorry, Chris Adler, who used to be with Lamb of God, and he was explaining to me that, like, he was influenced by R&B drumming in order to build these, like, rhythmic breakdowns in their music, right? And it was hilarious, because then when I tell people that story, they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, listen to that drum beat. That's an R&B rhythm that he took, from an R&B song and put it in the middle of a metal song, a really heavy metal song, right? And it totally works, right? So, things are connected more than you think. And yeah, off-road is, I love it. It's magical. I feel blessed to be, not just a part of the culture, but, my brother and I leading, the culture into, the future. And it's exciting, because again, it's like, we get to drive it in the direction that we feel is best for the culture, that's sustainable, that helps enhance it, rather than, just, being a corporation and just trying to milk it for all it's worth. It's like, I've had so many good experiences and plan to have many more, not just in America, but all over the world. I mean, hell, me and Killian were in Inner Mongolia, right? And these dudes roll up to us with their homemade, off-road vehicles that looks like, they made them out of bike fencing and a Toyota engine, but that's what they had. And like, they made it off of a photo they saw on the internet, and I'm like, dude, how cool is that? I'm like, if we can affect guys in Inner Mongolia to make off-road vehicles for the dunes. Like, how powerful are we? I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is like we're living in a world that is progressively becoming more automated, and really what I think our culture represents is like we're like the last cowboys. We're the guys and gals who we may have to drive city streets and highways 9 to 5 Monday through Friday because we've got to put food on the table. But when the weekend hits, we want to get squirrely. Like, don't box me in with asphalt and yellow and white lines. I want to get free bumps.
Yeah.
I want to
don't fence me in. You know?
And so I think that's what at the core of our sport. That's what that is. That's the if this was 100 years ago or 200 years ago, we'd be racing horses or whatever, right? Like,
true story.
So. Yeah.
Well, I know we could probably talk for another hour, but you guys have a meeting to get to, so we're gonna put a pause on this. TBD. Hopefully, the follow up. We'll do a part 2 at some point after hopefully some things fall into place. But back with more after this on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. When it's time to replace the tires on your vehicle, General Tire delivers the tires you need for both your next big adventure and your daily commute. Whether you need all-season traction, lasting tread wear, or a quiet drive, General Tires are designed to deliver whatever life brings your way. From all-season ultra-high-performance tires for passenger cars and crossovers to extreme all-season mud terrain and tires for light trucks and SUVs, General Tire delivers great performance. To find your ideal tire, visit GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Looking to have some fun on four wheels? Dirtfish Rally School has you covered. Packing as much adrenaline and adventure as you can handle into high-performance all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive Subaru rally cars is where the fun begins at Dirtfish. Just 30 minutes outside of Seattle in Snoqualmie, you'll get a chance to train up to 3 full days with some of the country's best instructors and be put through the high-octane rush of rally on mud, dirt, and tarmac. Get started today and call 425-888-7715 or visit us online at dirtfish.com and use code 911 for a 15% discount. Like what you're hearing? Do us a favor and head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki and never miss another show. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. Man, knocking the microphone around and everything, but got my buddy Matt Martelli here. As I said in the intro, did that amazing interview with you and Josh, Matt. Here's the follow-up with you because we kind of had to bite our tongues during that interview. We couldn't talk about the reason you were in Parker. Now we can. You guys got one of the permits for the Parker 400, man. We haven't even talked about unlimited, off-road racing series or anything like that. We can finally talk about all this stuff, dude. This has been some big announcements since you and I and your brother were sitting here in Parker.
Oh yeah, man, we are totally stoked. It was really hard to keep it quiet. I wanted to tell everybody, but now we can, so we're pumped. We got the permit from the BLM on the Parker 400, so we're going to bring it back, and we're going to bring it back the way it should be, like it was in its glory days, and even beyond it, similar to what we've done with the mid 400. So we are really excited about this one. Parker has a fantastic history, and it's one of the pillars of off-road racing, of desert racing culture. And, it's important that we prop that up and manage that correctly because, frankly, we didn't want to lose it. So, no, we're pumped, man. It's great.
Well, and I think that's what's awesome. I mean, obviously, you guys, you got the mint. We've talked about that. Then last year you brought in the California 300. You guys have always wanted to do a series, but you've wanted to do it the right way, and you wanted a slow growth. And obviously Parker, kind of fell into your lap. You guys had to work for it, but that's the third race now. I know you guys have already said, I think at some point in the future down the road, you'd love to add a fourth in, but I mean, now you guys have a legit, you had the Triple Crown this year where you piggybacked with King of the Hammers, but now it's legit. Your 3 races, you're able to do it the way you want. I mean, it's just funny because a few years ago, you probably never would have thought, you'd have a series with these 3 marquee blockbuster events, but here you are, dude.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I'm really stoked on the way things have happened. It's, anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a patient person, so, my brother, my cousin Killian, who work with me, have done a good job of keeping me calm. and making it a long-term deal, planning for the long term. And yeah, these are marquee events. We have Arizona, Nevada, and California. It's like basically 70 million people. So, those are major markets, and we're really excited about it. But, it's interesting how things work out. But, I've said it all along, it's the Conor McGregor saying, we're not here to participate. We're here to take over. And, that's what we're doing. And we're doing it, by backing up what we're saying and walking, our talk. And, I think this is going to be another example of that is last year we launched the California 300 with great success and brought racing back to Barstow, back to one of the birthplaces of off-road racing. And now we get to bring a major desert race back to Parker on the scale that it should be. So, yeah, we're excited about that. And two, now we have our own Triple Crown. I mean, when you think about the races out there and you're like, okay, if you win Parker, Mint, and California 300, I mean, you are the man or woman, you know what I mean? So we're just excited about, the future of off-road racing. And, we've got a lot of evolutions and things we want to implement, and now this gives us the opportunity to do that.
Well, one of the funny things that, I've seen on the internet, and I laugh because I think a lot of people are very short-sighted, or not short-sighted, but they don't have a very good memory. A lot of people are going, oh, well, Mad Media is going to come in and they're going to change things at Parker. They're going to change things. I'm going, yeah, but what people don't understand is you guys aren't changing things. You're taking it back to where it originally was. You're playing to the history. I'm like, I love Casey Folks to death, but when he came in, he made a lot of concessions and he made a lot of changes, and Parker wasn't Parker anymore. And now you guys, the short-sighted people that don't remember Parker pre-Best of the Desert, they have no idea how it was here. And I think what's got the locals happy, it's got me excited, is you guys are looking to play to the history. You want to bring it back to the way it was in the 80s and 90s, with Sal Fish and what he was able to do and Mickey Thompson originally was able to do. And I think that's what's funny. The people go, oh, they're going to change it. I'm like, no, it's already been changed. You're just taking it back to where it was and it should be.
Yeah, 100%. Look, Mickey Thompson was one of our heroes, and, I learned a lot by watching him as a kid and him building the off-road empire that he had built. And unfortunately, he was stolen from our culture at a critical time that, basically devastated our growth, Well, Sal had his turn and he did a fantastic job. And frankly, Sal's one of our advisors. I call him all the time and go, hey, Sal, how'd you do this? Or why did you do this? And, but yeah, this race was one of the ones I came to as a kid. And it was still, that was when it was still being raced on both sides of the river, on the California side and the Arizona side. And it was huge. It was a massive event that everybody went to every year. It was a do not miss, not just a race, but an event. And that's what we're going to return it to. Put money in the businesses and, grow it and bring more racers and bring more fans and more eyeballs to, the river area. I mean, everybody who knows Parker and knows Havasu knows how badass and beautiful it is and how fun it is, to be in the river and to be off-roading there. It's just a, beautiful desert and a bitchin' area, and, we want to share that with everybody.
Yeah. Well, I know you'd mentioned Sal Fish, and I got to say, dude, it would be I think everybody in Parker would love to have Sal back in Parker just to hang out for the weekend. So we got to make that call, because I'm like, my grandfather worked with Sal, my dad worked with Sal, and I would love just to sit down in Parker at some point and have a drink with Sal, and just the nostalgia of it to me would be awesome having him back here, with you guys and your brother, and my family, man. It would just things would be complete full circle, I think, if Sal came back for this first year.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to do it. And, the heritage of our culture is really important to us. All the people, your dad, Manny Iscaria, all the different racers, the volunteers, that have contributed to this culture over the past 50 years, and that's what this is a celebration of. Is badass off-road racing culture with badass people, man. That's why I love this.
Well, and I want to talk a little bit, you know what I mean, because what you've done with this Triple Crown, in your series and things like that, it's like you focused on 3 key events, and I think a lot more promoters. Everybody thinks you got to add events, you got to have more events, you got to have more events, and we see some of these bloated schedules with 6, 7, 8 events that really 75% of them are nonsense. I think Score's focused on 4 really big events down there in Mexico, and I applaud them for that. You know what I mean? And you and your brother now, it's going to have 3, and it's like you want to do 3, but you want to do them at an extremely high level that delivers a ton of value for fans, a ton of value for sponsors, a ton of value for racers. And I think that's key. It's sometimes less is more, and I feel like what you and your brother have assembled is proof in that. Less is more. Let's do 3 events at an extremely high level and instead of trying to do 6 or 7 that, quite frankly, are half-ass.
Yeah, listen, we've learned a lot from, our time in action sports, and in particular working with ESPN and the X Games. And it's like, look, do you want to go to a skate contest or do you want to go to X Games? That's the easy answer, right? You want to go to X Games because it's an event and it's a spectacle. And that's what people want. That's what we need for off-road racing. People do not understand that if we don't do that, we will not be here in the future, because we have to wave our economic impact flag like we've never waved it before. And we've got a lot of momentum and a lot of growth going on with, particularly with UTVs, but also with all these new off-road models that the larger manufacturers have been kicking out, like, the Bronco, the TRX, the Raptor, and there's more stuff coming from all these different manufacturers that's, off-road centric. So it's go time. And, that's what we're interested in. We're interested in doing big events and showcasing them in big markets and bringing in new eyeballs, so that people can realize that this is the most badass motorsport on the planet, bar none.
Yeah, well, and I think, the pandemic proved that, not just from the racing standpoint, but from the recreational standpoint. You mentioned, Dodge, Ford. I mean, Ford's got multiple models. I mean, Jeep, we can't forget about Jeep, who's just been a staple of the industry for years. But it's like, even RV sales, UTV sales, dirt bike sales, jet ski sales, snowmobile sales, pretty much anything involving motors in the outdoors. Like, people don't want to be locked in their houses anymore. They want to go out. They want to take in music. They want to take in events. They want to feel the thrill of doing something and that adrenaline rush, and it's like, we lost that for, a year to 2 years, depending on where you live. And it's like, people that hurt people. People want their lives back, and I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, I think it just realigned everybody's, what's important to them, right? And one thing that's important about America is that we have freedom and we have open spaces, and we're not like Europe where, every city and street is already spoken for. We have a lot of open land here, and that, means that we can go off-road all over this beautiful country. So, we need to celebrate that, not just as racers, but, when you recreate as well. And I've been fortunate that I've traveled all over the United States. I've off-roaded all over the world, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I can tell you, you want to bring your friends and family on an experience that'll bond you and, connect you forever, go off-roading, go to a place where your cell phone doesn't work so your kids aren't looking at the thing, to guide them, just go out and have a good time, off the grid, away from everything. That's what off-roading is about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, we got California 300 coming up. I think, some of the, entries will open for that, I think, in the next month sometime, I believe. So we've got that coming this fall. Parker coming up immediately in January. Man, you guys are full tilt between now and then the Mints next March. I mean, you guys, the next year, you guys are going to be packed there at Mad Media.
Yeah, we're going to be jamming, but one thing we learned by having the quick turn between December and March was that we're capable of doing it, and it also worked better because the muscle memory was there. Like when we have 8 months off in between an event, it's easy to get slacky and forget about things. But right now we are in kill mode, and we're excited. So yeah, California 300 is going to be big. We got our 5-year permit from the BLM, so now we have the bigger course. So all those people that were crying about how technical the course was, well, we're going to give you the bigger stuff now to go fast, so don't worry. It's going to be a spectacular race. There's still going to be some technical stuff in there because we like that stuff, right? But there's going to be some big go fast stuff as well. So, we're really excited about that race coming up. That's, we expect the numbers to double, so it's going to be solid.
Yeah, well, I definitely think the buzz around the California 300, year one, I think the people that went were stoked, and I think the people that missed out were bummed, and I think you're going to get all those people that sat on the sidelines, and kind of the wait and see. I think they saw, and now they're like, yep, we're all in. We want to go to the California 300. I'm really excited to see the entry banks open up and see, who starts sliding their entries in.
Well, we've got, shortly we're going to release the standings in the Triple Crown, but we've got some interesting battles already happening in that, so that's pretty exciting. And we're actually working on some really badass trophies for that. I have a local swords, not fake, put them on your wall swords, but real swords for those trophies, the big classes there that are entered into that.
That's awesome, man. Well, Matt, I know you're traveling, but I appreciate you chiming in on Parker. Really stoked with California 300 coming up. Parker, I know more information will be dropping at Off-Road Racer, the website. And, man, thanks for the support, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate you and everything you do for the foreign culture, Jimmy.
Making the most of every moment can be demanding, which is why at General Tire, we think you should demand more from your tires. For more than a century, we've made great all-around tires that always deliver the right combination of performance, durability, style, and value. Whether you're looking at the ultra-high-performance summer tires for your street rod or the best-in-class all-weather tire for your family crossover, General Tire delivers for those who demand more from their tires. Find your fit at GeneralTire.com. General Tire, the official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Don't just shred your way through any off-road rugged terrain. Get into gear with GSP XTV and let us redefine your adventure. The GSP Advantage of quality and performance sets a standard for UTV axles. We strive to provide premium ATV and UTV axles to keep you shreddy ready. Kick up some dirt and get in the driver's seat with GSP XTV. With over 35 years of experience, drive with a company you can trust. Drive with GSP. For more information, please visit us at gspxtv.com today. Like what you're hearing? Do us a favor and head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki and never miss another show. Welcome back here to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. And, it's about all we got, Great to hang out with my boys, the Martellis. Huge things coming for the world of off-road. And, good stuff. Once again, make sure to head over to my YouTube channel, subscribe there. Start next week. We're going to start dropping videos of all of our guests, me interviewing them. So whether you want the audio-only version, you want the video version, got them both at Jim Beaver 15 on social media, Apple Podcasts, depending on where you're listening. Make sure and subscribe over there. Please leave a rating or review. Definitely helps us out. And, don't forget General Tire. Well, right now through the end of April, now's the best time of the year to buy a qualifying set of General Tires because you get up to a $70 mail-in rebate. Make sure and go into the footnotes of the show. Hit the link. It'll take you over and tell you how to save $70 on a qualifying set of General Tires now through, April 30th. It's only a 30-day month. April 30th. big projects, some good stuff coming out of me. We'll loop you in on that at a future date. Next week we got Anna Glennon, aka Jet Girl, top female jet skier in the world, going to be one of my guests. Also got Ruslan Grease Hands. He's going to be one of my guests on the show as well. Young shredder in a UTV, big social following because the kid full sends all the time. So that'll be a fun interview as well. So don't want to miss out on those. Big thanks to all our partners, General Tire, Vision Wheel, Rigid Industries, GSPX TV Axles, Dirtfish Rally School, iRacing, everybody who continues to support us, our boys at Clean Freak, always helping out, Kawasaki, lots of good partners in the show. And don't forget, my Kawasaki build Electra, going to be doing some filming here very soon with that. So you guys are going to want to know all about this car. Trust me, man. Supercharged KRX. She's wild. But anyways, I'm going to sign off for this week. I've rambled enough. Thank you guys for listening. And I'll see you next time right here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. And that's a wrap for this edition of the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Good Times by Kawasaki. Thanks for listening. Be sure and head to Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the show, and follow at Jim Beaver 15, at General Tire, and at Kawasaki USA on social media. Itching for more? JimBeaver15.com has all the latest. We'll see you next time.